This is Steven Diego, and you're tuned in to Breaking Down the Breakdown. On today's episode, we have Pastor Paul Calcote, and we talk about how we deal with mental health in our religious communities. Hello, everybody. Okay, so today's episode is super special for me just because I've never done this before. Like, y'all see me, like, have a lot of people over, or like I talk to people online on Zoom. But the thing is, I kind of know all of my guests, right? So for the first time, I was like, okay, let me get out of my comfort zone, get somebody that I really don't know, but really wants to be on the show. So I was like, all right. So here he is, everybody. Paul Calcote, how are you doing today?
Steven, what's up, bro? I'm well.
My goodness, he's in Louisiana right now, right?
Yep, in Louisiana right now.
So lucky. I've always wanted to go. I just want to go and eat.
Seriously, that's why I gained most of my weight when I lived in New Orleans for 2 years, bro.
Yo, man, it's bulking season all the time. It's okay. There's no shame in that.
Like that. I'm sorry using this booking season at all times.
It is, right? You're growing. You're a grown man. Like, you know what I mean? You gotta improve somehow. Now, I do want you to talk about what you do, Paul. What is it that you do?
Yes, I am a young adult pastor in Houston, Texas. And so I primarily minister to college students and young adults, and also co-lead our marriage ministry. And since May of 2020, I'm a fellow podcaster as well. And so that's me in a nutshell, man. Pastor, podcasting, speaking, a few memes on Instagram, but that's me, man.
That's really, man, I'm trying to get into memes and stuff. I can't. I'm just so bad at it. It takes a certain kind of humor to be able to actually develop that stuff. So good for you, man. But damn,
it's dangerous. It's a little bit dangerous as a pastor because some people could think, well, you shouldn't laugh at the sacred thing. So it's always a fine line. And so every now and then I may cross it, but oh well.
But I think that's really good because for a lot of people, and I do have a lot of friends and acquaintances who are not inherently religious or like doesn't want anything to do with religion whatsoever. And they always paint people who are religious or within that, the ministry as they got to be uptight or like they have no sense of humor about this because, if I say this, they're going to be like, God will smite you. And for me, it's like, I think it's great that you do that because it shows people that, hey, humor is humor, right? Like it needs to exist.
Exactly, bro. I'm so glad you said that because one of the things that I penciled in to my job description is to showcase that Christianity does not have to be boring. Like, it doesn't have to be boring. We're not uptight. We don't have to be serious all the time. God created laughter. He created joy. So why not have fun being a Christian? But I digress.
Exactly, right? Like for me, like I'm a Catholic. So like I grew up with strict Catholic values. Most of them were just kind of, like forced upon me. And, as I grew older, I kind of found certain things were a little bit problematic with how it was ingrained upon me, right? And there were things that where I was like, had I just kind of came into this on my own, I feel like I would have appreciated it a lot more. And one of them was the fact that, and this is why, okay, this is going to sound kind of weird, but like
Go for it.
My second year university, I actually joined gospel choir in university.
Okay.
And it opened up this whole new world for me because it was like going to a regular church as opposed to being able to go to a church where it was, like gospel choir and stuff. Like it was so emotional that I was like, why aren't my churches like this? Like, why is it that I go to church every Sunday and it's, let's read this and it's this, and then the sermon, like I like it when certain priests or pastors are able to actually take from their personal experiences and share that. But majority of the time it's in the news, it's like this is what happened in the news and then this, and I feel like a lot of humanity is lost within that, right? That you know what, this is why like I really glad that people like you exist because it allows people to maybe, even if you're not super religious, but you believe in God or something, right? Like open it up a little bit, like try, just don't be so close-minded about these things. So I think it's great that you do this, man.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. And I agree to everything you said. Like, don't be so close minded. And sometimes when I'm preaching, I like to use a personal story or putting in a joke. Once again, just to bring that humanity to it. And so, see, we're on the same wavelength. I like this
Yeah.
already.
I know, me too. Now, speaking of open mind, so I do want you to kind of talk about your podcast. What is your podcast about?
Yeah, the name of it is Real People, Real Talk. It's a faith based podcast. And my goal is I want to take every listener from surviving to thriving. And I want them to thrive spiritually. I want them to know Jesus. I'm unapologetic about my faith, but I also want them to thrive physically, financially, relationally, and mentally.
Right.
And really use conversation to inspire them to be all that God has called them to be. And so, speaking of religion, like I named it Real People, Real Talk. I didn't want to give it a churchy or religious name. So,
Right.
therefore, like, it will be more inviting to like non-Christians and people that don't believe. And in there, I'm not ashamed of my faith, but I don't have a Bible on every episode. Like, as soon as they come in, I'm gonna thump them with the Bible. And so it's very inviting, it's practical, it's relatable. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you asking about it.
No, anytime, man. And like it was very important for me to actually have you on the show. And so Paul and I are part of this group on Facebook. It's like a Buzzsprout kind of like podcasting group where podcasters actually connect with each other. And a lot of people have messaged me to be on the show. And it's interesting for me because the people that have messaged, I checked out their podcasts and y'all been through a lot. And that's why for me, like I said yes to every single one of the people that posted. And people were probably thinking like, oh, you're just taking any guess. And for me, it's like, you know what? At the end of the day, unfortunately, I do have to take every single one of y'all because you have a story to tell that seems, kind of like so like heartbreaking. And I hate that y'all went through that. But at the same time, I'm glad you're able to share that.
Yeah.
So with Paul, he actually posted a link to one of his episodes. And I was like, damn, like I never thought of it this way. And it's just, to me, it's so inspiring because a lot of people might not get it because you're not really into religion. But for people who, and this is what's important for me, I know people that used to be religious or used to believe, but things in their lives did not work out and they feel like they were neglected
Yeah.
by God, right? And not even just that, I feel like they were also influenced by other people saying that, well, like if God was like this, that wouldn't have happened to you, right? And I liked that in one of Paul's episodes. And I do want to ask you about this later, and I want you to be able to tell your story about this. But there were things that I picked up on. And today we're going to talk about depression because I know that Paul has had kind of like a little bout with that. Am I right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said that really, really stuck with me was that God isn't angry or disappointed when you have heartache or depression, right? Like it's a common call to life. Like I really like that because a lot of people they associate depression with, like almost like demons, like any mental health
Yeah.
issues with demons, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest thing for me, the biggest takeaway, and this is why I was like, okay, I need to have you on this show, is because I've encountered so many religious people that have told me to just pray for things to go away, right? Like when you said pray for the pain to go away, I like that you followed it up with seeking help after that.
Definitely.
Because a lot of people, they feel like, well, if I pray and God's listening, I will be healed. And it's like, guys, even in the Bible, when God gave people healing hands, like that's exactly what it is. He gave people
Right.
the ability to heal, right? And sometimes, praying for it is almost like praying for, okay, help me meet somebody that can help me get through what I'm going through right now. And people don't get that. So I appreciate that you're able to speak about this on your podcast. Guys, his podcast, Real People, Real Talk, y'all have to listen to it. It's amazing. But now I got to get to Paul. I do have to ask now, and this is going to be all about you now. When did your breakdown happen and what exactly happened?
Man. Well, first of all, thank you for being such a great host and doing your research and listening to the podcast. I appreciate those kind words. Man, let me go in the time machine. It's literally was about a decade ago.
Ooh,
Literally April, May of 2011.
okay.
April, May, and I was I quote unquote I was supposed to graduate in 2011 because I graduated high school in 2007. So you're supposed to graduate in 4 years,
Mhm.
and so I played around my second year and didn't get a lot of hours, and it caught up with me my fourth year. So I went to the graduation that I wasn't a part of, but my class was, and I walked out of that place maybe 10 minutes into the ceremony because I just couldn't take it. I was just overwhelmed with the fact like I'm a failure. I have a bit of perfectionism in me, like, I got to get the A or the best grade, this and that. And
Right.
so feelings of insecurity, feelings of, not good enough. Like, how did Paul Calcote, a little pride there, like, how did I not graduate on time? So I walked out literally in tears,
Oh
and that was the
no.
biggest thing. And then because I didn't want the shame of a lot of people didn't know that I wasn't graduating. I didn't want the shame of walking around and people, oh, let me take a picture with the graduate. I'm like, who? Not me. So that was the biggest trigger. Another trigger is I had like my first breakup during that same month. And I was like, hello,
Oh.
rejection. Ouch, that hurts. So it was the graduation was the biggest thing. And then like the first breakup. And then there's some things in my peer groups that we just disagreed over religion, which is crazy because we're all Christians. But anyway, we had some disagreements and lost some friends. So all three of those things just put me in a funk. And I just, yeah, that's where it started right
Oh
there.
my god. When it rains, it pours, don't it?
Whores, bro. Whores.
My goodness. Okay. Well, so then after all of that, how did it feel for you? Like, what was going through your head? Because I know at this point, this is where intrusive thoughts really kick in. Now, what
Yeah,
was going through your mind?
dude, initially, this is something I had to wrestle with theologically, and I'm in a different place now. But initially, I had
Mhm.
to think of like, if I'm suffering mentally, something must be wrong with me.
Right.
If I'm suffering mentally, God must be mad at me. And through scripture and through friends, and just kind of shape my theology and getting deep into God's word. Like, just because I'm depressed or worried or insert any other mental health issue,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that God is mad at me. That just means that I'm human.
Yeah.
I gave the metaphors like what God is like a father to us. What good father is going to get mad at his child that
Mhm.
walks up to him and says, I have a headache? In the same way, God is not mad at me when I pray to him and say I have a heartache.
Right.
Things that's going on emotionally. And so it was some intrusive thoughts. Like I've never been, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. Like I've never been suicidal, but I
Yeah.
remember being in Vicksburg, my home city, and it's we have the Mississippi River there. And my favorite place to go, just kind of relax and think is by the river. And I remember just the thought, just like passing through, like, hey, just drive your car off in there and just end it. And I'm like, no, like I know it sucks right now, but I
Yeah.
want to live. And for those that may be struggling with suicide, I just want to say graciously, and I'm not a professional, but just through experience, that suicide doesn't necessarily end the pain. It
Mhm.
just transfers it to the people that you love. And so that's the only thing I would say to that.
Damn. That is powerful. Like a lot of people, unfortunately, even after knowing that, right? Like sometimes the thoughts just get a hold on them. And that's when real issues happen, right? That's when suicidal
Yeah.
people like really need to be committed, right? But I feel like that message isn't really for people who are suicidal or depression or going through depression. Rather, I feel like that message should be said to people who are around people who are dealing with that.
Yeah.
Because for us to stand here and look at them and not be able to help them or not go out of our way to help them, knowing that they need help, we are the ones who's going to end up hurt.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
And that's the thing. And I really like that you said that, but oh my God, you poor thing. but look, but look at you, right? Like, and this is this is super important for me that you're talking about it because I have Filipinos are super religious. And I'm Filipino, and I have a lot of listeners that are Filipino and are in the Philippines. And in the Philippines, up to this day, mental health is so taboo. And a huge part of it is because of religion, right? They feel like like everything can be cured just by praying away all these things, but they don't realize that there's a it's a step by step process. There's a step two after prayer, right? I do have to ask now with um whenever you, how do I say this? Like when you're talking about mental health issues with, the parishioners, or when, because you're a pastor, right?
Mhm.
How is your community, like your church community, with this whole mental health thing? Like, are they open to it, or do you find that some people in your community is still kind of like iffy about it to talk about it, or are they open to talking about it if they're dealing with these things?
Yeah, like same here in the black community and specifically in the black church community, it's taboo.
Right.
Uh, I've heard this quote that says like 1 out of 5 people struggle with mental illness, but 5 out of 5 people have mental health. So we all
Mm-hmm.
have mental things going on, and I feel like the conversation is slowly there's more awareness coming to this whole thing of like mental health, where it's like almost becoming like mainstream to talk about it. But I share with them like I'm a man of the cloth. I'm a pastor. I believe in prayer. If I have a headache, Stephen, the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pray about it.
Right.
If the headache continues, I'm gonna go talk to my friend Tylenol and take what I need to take. Now, if that headache continues after that,
Yeah.
I'm going to seek professional help. And
Right.
so, in the same way that God provides nurses and doctors and surgeons and physicians to help us with our physical ailments, He provides therapists and counselors and social workers, etc., to help us with our mental and emotional issues. And so, I believe in prayer and therapy, prayer and counseling. As a pastor, I go. We have a counseling center in our church, and I see the guy once a month.
Right.
And I don't wait till there's a fire and like, oh, I need to go see him. I just
Right.
set my schedule once a month because sometimes it's preventative. And I would just a lot of it's just venting and just letting some stuff out because I'm very transparent and open with my wife, but I don't tell her everything that I struggle with just
Of
because I don't
course.
want to burden her down. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
taking care of my mental health actually helps me with my relationships. But to specifically answer your question, yes, they are more open to it. We do this thing called check-ins. We do about once every 6 weeks with our college students and young adults, and we just say, how are you doing? How are you doing for real?
Yeah.
We're gonna give you 2 minutes to vent. Then we're gonna pray for you. Just give them an open space, a non-judgmental space, just to be real, open, and honest. And then we're gonna read the Bible and we're gonna pray for you. But we also give you the chance to vent. And so it's opening up in my world.
That is amazing. Oh my God. You know what? I really feel like every single church, every single synagogue, every single denomination of religion should follow that.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, like we need each other, right? And I feel like you being
Yes,
able to do that, that is what counts. That's what really helps people.
seriously.
My goodness. Why can't you people be here in Toronto? I'm kidding. No,
Bro,
but
it's
for
something
real.
else that brought up in this research paper that I did when I was in seminary. And it's crazy because while I was in seminary, I dealt with a not as big of a bout of depression as I did in 2011, but another
Right.
bout just because I'm in a new state, I'm in a new city, I'm in a new church. My dad is a pastor, so it's my first time calling somebody else pastor and being a part of a different church. So there's so many different things. Financially, like my bills literally doubled and my income was cut in half. And so having those two things that happen at the same time, there's a lot of stuff going on. So it put me
Yeah.
into a funk, and it was ironic that I was writing a paper about depression while I was kind of going through it. And one thing that stuck out and that you said was depression is like the common cold of life. We all face bouts of depression just at
Yeah.
different seasons of life and in different varieties. Some people are high functioning. They can be in depression and write in the paper about it, or there's
Right.
some that it's just a dark cloud over them. And so, like you said, we really need each other. And I just think that, as a community, just step it up and just being open to hear from people. And, when they're struggling, just don't cast them away. And like, maybe you're sinning or God is angry with you. No, the person is
Right.
struggling mentally. My favorite example to use with mental health, bro, Stephen, is let's say Sally gets into a car wreck.
Okay.
Not to be too graphic, but it takes her leg off.
Yes.
I'm not gonna go up to Sally and say, "Hey, feel better, feel better." That's ludicrous. So in the same way, when somebody says I'm struggling to mentally insert any specific illness or whatever, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say, hey, just feel better. Just pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Oh gee, thanks. That really helped me out. So anyway, that's my soapbox, man.
I I wish every single podcast has a video right now because it's exactly how I fucking feel my reaction when you said that. Because there's so many people that we get it. It's a mental thing, right? But you can't just go up to a person and say, well, just don't think about it. It's not that easy.
Right. If it was, I would stop thinking about it.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. And then there's people that attributes these things to not being strong enough, you know? And
Bruh.
this is what
Yeah.
and that happens within our communities, unfortunately. They feel like, well, God, you're not, you're not strong enough because you ain't praying enough. You don't have God's will in you to get through this. Like, you shouldn't be even seeking therapists. And it's like, I'm sorry, I feel like they're actually stronger for admitting that there is something
Yes.
going on with them.
Me too. Yes.
But that is, wow, that is
But
crazy.
there's people in the Bible, like I don't want to put stuff in the Bible that's not there because the word
Mhm.
depression is not in the Bible. But there's
Yeah.
some people in the Bible, if you read their story, you can safely, deductively reasoning that they were dealing with depression. Like, it was a guy by the name of
Yeah.
Elijah. It was a queen at the time that basically told him, I'm going to kill you. So a world power, a world leader, in
Right.
that sense, and said, I'm going to kill you. I'm gonna be scared too. And so Elijah got to the point where he asked the Lord to take his life.
Yeah.
And God didn't say, you know what, since you're suicidal and you're weak, I'm gonna take your life.
Right.
No, he sent a miraculously fed him through a raven, gave him some encouragement, and he kept living, to make a long story short. And so, yeah, man, people, we're human. And admitting to our mental and emotional, I don't even want to say shortcomings, admitting to our emotional and mental problems, like you said, Stephen,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that we're weak. It means that we're strong enough to admit that we have weaknesses. We're human enough to let other people know that I need help, whether it's therapy or medicine or things like that. So, yes, I appreciate you for raising this awareness about this, because it needs to be raised.
Thank you. Yeah, man. Like, these are just things that we notice, right? And then, unfortunately, though, like, and this is where people like us who have been through it, we really need to be vigilant because we need to understand that regular people who have never struggled with any type of mental health irregularities in their lives will never get it.
Yeah,
And that's just the sad part, right?
yeah,
That even if we do this, we try to raise awareness about it, they'll never understand it because for them, they think back on their struggles and how their struggles they got through. But because they were depressed or they didn't go through anxieties, they feel like, well, I got through it just by doing this. So I don't know why you can't do that. Right. So I feel like, we have a lot of work to do because we need to find a way for them to meet us in the middle
yeah,
where they don't have to go through it. Because I don't want anyone going through what we went through. You know what I
right.
mean? Like, it is the worst. I don't want everyone to see any of my friends go through depression or go through, my OCD stuff. Like, there is no way. Like, it is so painful. There were nights where I know we're not suicidal, but when that pain gets to that point where you start thinking about it and you have to start saying, no, no, I ain't like this, that's when you know
Right.
you've had too much of that, right?
Yeah,
And I don't want anyone going through that. But yeah, I'm glad you are the way that you are, Paul, because people need you, especially during COVID times.
I appreciate.
And, like I go see my therapist once a month, and even for him, he started to get really booked up. And I'm like, oh, like, must be really busy for you. And he was like, I'm getting new clients. I'm getting clients I haven't seen in a decade come to me now. Yeah. And because of, this is it. Like, this is what's happening, right? So for people to still not acknowledge that mental health issues are a thing, for me, is really concerning. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm glad that there are people like you that are open about this because we need to really just blast it wide open and get, you know what? You feeling a little bit weird? Come talk to me. Come talk to your friends, right? Like what you said, it's preventative.
yeah. And it's levels to it. There's some cases where you just need somebody who's trained clinically to hear you out, offer some suggestions, offer some coping mechanisms. They can do wonders. And so sometimes, as a community, what we can do for others, I'm not saying, we should be other people's therapists, but
Right.
sometimes allowing them to vent and just being an open ear can do wonders for somebody mentally and emotionally in an amateur way. Once again, that's not professional advice. I'm just saying these are just extra things that kind of help as part of self-care. Like,
Yeah.
have some friends I can vent to, no judgment, they pray for me. Then if
Yeah.
it's super serious, let me go see a professional. So just keeping that balance there.
I like that. That is That is true. For a lot of us, we feel like, maybe the pressure is because we feel like we have to put in our opinion. And it's like, no, guys, we really don't. Sometimes a
Right.
person just needs an ear, right?
Uh, Listen, man. A story about speaking of listening, I said, listen. A story. I was a camp counselor. No, I was camp leader, and I was leading a group of seniors, and we had something called like one on ones. And so we was on the porch in front of the cafe, had a one on one with this guy, and I asked him two questions. I forgot what they were, but I asked him two questions, and he talked for like 45 minutes. I didn't interrupt him; I just let him talk.
Right.
And at the end of that, he was like, "Man, thank you so much." And I didn't understand the power of listening in that moment, but in my mind, I was like, all I did was ask two questions and shut up. But the gift of listening does wonders for people, man.
It truly
So
does. It
yeah,
truly does. And this is why I have this show on, right? Because for a lot of people, sometimes their stories have gone untold because they're scared that people ain't gonna listen, you
yeah,
know? And sometimes they feel like people will listen and will say something back to them. And this kind of platform gives them a chance to not have to hear what people have to say and be able to talk about it. Because for me, like I'm not gonna sit here and judge or whatever, right? Like, man, the world still has a long way to go with this stuff, eh? And we just keep getting thrown curveballs.
okay.
Right? But we are kind of running out of time. Unfortunately, I will ask you to come back because there's other things I do want to talk about, especially being a pastor and everything. I do have a lot of questions.
Oh,
But before we don't worry, it's all good stuff.
I know I'm messing with
Maybe some controversial stuff, but I do want to open this
you.
up. Ooh, exactly. But before I do wrap this up,
No.
I want to ask, and I always ask people this: how long did it take you to feel like you've had a handle on your depression? And even if actually answer that one first, and I'm gonna have a follow up question on you.
Okay. I would say I feel like I had a handle on it when I admitted that I had a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, and I went to go see a Christian counselor when I was in school and it really helped me put some things together. So that's when I feel like I had a quote unquote hold on it when I admitted it
Right.
and I was strong enough to go get help.
Now, and I like that you say the Christian counselor, right?
Hmm.
And it's one of those things for me where it's like I feel like for a lot of people they're afraid to seek help because their values might not align with the person's values,
Right.
right? Do you feel like if you were to have seen a counselor that didn't necessarily have the same religious views as you, would it have been as effective, or do you feel like
Ooh, that's a great question. Like
yeah,
I can't speak too much to it because I've never gone to a non-Christian therapist. I only had two, one in college and then the person I see right now.
right,
But I can't really say. My assumption would be I don't think it would be as effective because every things that I share I'm relating it to faith or scripture, and if this
right,
person doesn't know about that, he was like he may skip over that or minimize it.
right,
So yeah, that's my minimized take on that.
right. No, but like I mean, and this is exactly why I asked, right? Because for me, I want to really decipher and break down where the disconnect sometimes happens with people, right? Because we have a lot of, like in unfortunately in the mental health community, we actually jump from psychiatrists to psychiatrists or psychotherapists to psychotherapists until we find the right one that fits, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like that's a very interesting take because for a lot of my listeners right now, if you guys are still here with us, and I really hope you are, um, it's like what Paul said. If you are within that same type of religion and you are seeking help, and let's say you had a therapist before that was, an atheist, right? And there's nothing bad about that. It's just exactly what Paul said. They might not be able to relate to what you're going through, or you might not be able to relate to how they're going to help you
Yeah.
because you have a set of beliefs and values that you kind of want to use so that you can strengthen yourselves in time where your therapist can't be there. And
Yeah.
that therapist needs to be able to tap into the tools that you have. And if this therapist doesn't believe in the tools that you have, then they gonna work. It doesn't mean that therapy doesn't work. It just means that you just haven't found the right one. So I encourage y'all to actually, keep on looking for the right fit. I mean, luckily Paul found the right fit right away, which is great. And I really hope that is the case for a lot of people. Even for me, for my psychotherapist, found the right fit, but I had to find 3 different psychiatrists to actually properly diagnose me. Right. But we can't give up. And that's the
Exactly.
important thing. We can't give up. Oh my goodness. This has been great. Like I wish we could keep going. Like I can like talk for hours to you. Like there's so many questions I want to ask, but I do promise that Paul will be back, right, Paul?
Yes, let's do it.
I'm so glad. I hope I hope everything is great. I know you are on a little bit of a vacay right now. I hope you are having fun there.
Oh yeah.
Eat lots of food for me, please.
Dude, while I'm in Louisiana, it's something you have to eat when it's this season. Crawfish. So my brother-in-law is about to get some right now. So I was like, well, while he go get it, I'm gonna do this interview and then we go eat good later.
Uh, I'm coming down. I don't care. Screw
Come
this
on,
lockdown.
man.
I'm coming down.
I ain't gonna tell.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. Remember, guys, his show, his podcast, Real People, Real Talk, it's out everywhere. It's on everything. Just search for it. Guys, you are not going to regret it. If you have any questions for Paul or myself, remember to email me at stevendiego@hotmail.com. I will post it on the info in the podcast. Again, Paul Calcote, thank you so much for doing this. You rock, and I will have him back. So, guys, prepare your questions if you do have them. Thanks. See you guys.